So now I'm going to go over the trivia for The Long Walk, which I did a review on my other channel. Again, my review for this film is I didn't really like it. I was not able to get into it. It's very sad, of course. Very sad and all that, but it's just a weird movie. It didn't draw me in. I don't know, I couldn't get into it. But this is the trivia for it. I like going over this stuff. The first one is, although Stephen King has said he didn't explicitly intend it that way, the Long Walk novel is often seen as an allegorical critique of the Vietnam War and the senseless death and spectacle of state-sanctioned violence that accompanied the conflict. You write from your time, so certainly that was in my mind, but I never thought about it consciously, King told Vanity Fair. I was writing a kind of a brutal thing. It was hopeless. And just what you write when you're 19 years old, man. You're full of beans and you're full of cynicism, and that's the way it was. And he hadn't gotten to his cocaine years yet either, I think. On August 30, 2025, Lionsgate held a special screening where the invited audience was required to walk on treadmills at the regulation 3 miles per hour for the duration of the film, under threat of being thrown out if they slowed down. What? Lionsgate had a special screening where they invited the audience and was required to walk, and were required to walk on treadmills. Did they know this? I guess they probably knew that. So then you're going to have to dress up in like athletic clothes for an hour and 50 minutes. I mean, that's cool, but... Huh. I mean, that's fun. You gotta admit, this would be more of a universal thing, wouldn't it? Like an attraction, a Disney attraction ride or something. David Johnson didn't speak with Mark Hamill on set because it didn't feel right to get to know the man playing the Major, an authority figure within the totalitarian regime. Actually, I didn't talk to him at all on set. I didn't say a single word to him. Some of the boys did because, it's Luke Skywalker, man, but a few of us just didn't. Not in a rude way. It just felt right to honor the fact that there was some form of separation, he shared. Yeah, that's good. I mean, the people don't know each other in the movie, so you don't want that feeling. I mean, they weren't near each other. It probably wouldn't have really mattered. The closest is on the bridge scene when Garrity tells him to shut up. I think that's like the closest. Oh no, well, and then the end where the standoff, they're not too close though. It continues saying he noted it was difficult to avoid interaction with Hamill, who was nothing like the Major, as Johnson found out when they met after production. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life because Mark Hamill is just the nicest soul you've ever met, he praised. I met him after we were done filming, and he just gives me the biggest hug and goes to tell me Hollywood stories. I'm just like, don't ever stop. He's a lovely soul, and he's absolutely phenomenal in the film. Interesting. Cooper Hoffman said that he and his co-stars walked 15 miles a day in 100-degree heat on concrete and with no shade, totaling almost 400 miles. The grueling long takes in the hot Winnipeg, Canada sun took a toll. There was a real, when you get there and you started walking, anxiety of actually making it through the day. So they actually, that's what I read this before. I didn't think it was that extent intense or whatever. They actually walked for all of the movie? It seems like it's the entire movie. A behind the scenes thing is going to be pretty cool. How would that even... So, do they have sunscreen on? Oh, I see. It's until 15 miles and then they stopped. But 15 miles a day. So, yeah. That's pretty cool. That's technically method acting in a way. In the book, the walkers have to maintain a speed of 4 miles per hour, but in the movie, at the request of Stephen King, they changed it to 2 miles per hour. So he felt the original speed was unrealistic for the duration of the contest. I don't understand that. This guy approved the ending, and the ratings are not reflecting the approval. Garrett Waring said that during filming, a weekly tradition every Friday became getting blizzards at Dairy Queen together. The brotherhood that you see on screen is a brotherhood that we had in person and in between takes. We were listening to music. We were decompressing. The weather, combined with long takes of ceaseless walking, were hot, 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 he recalls, and that ice cream hit. I would sleep for those 2 days on the weekend and then hit the ground running, hit the ground walking on Monday. This is the most fun I've ever had on a set, agrees Toot Nuat, 21, who plays contestant Arthur Baker. We're all young. We're all figuring this thing out. And even within that, you just lean on each other. Wow. Huh. That's really cool. On taking the part of a young character who lost a father like Cooper Hoffman had himself, Hoffman said, when your trauma is on display for the world, there's no actually hiding it. I'm like, I might as well talk about it, or I might as well put it into something, because if I keep hiding and running from it, that's not fair to anyone else who has ever gone through that. I'm here to display this person's experience as honestly as I can. I hopefully someone else watches it and goes, he sees me, he understands me. And that's, in my opinion, the only reason to do any sort of art. That's sad. When asked about his character's turning point where he starts to realize he cares about the remaining walkers, Garrett Waring said, the moment for me came a little bit sooner. It's a moment when Tresler, Samuel Clark, is holding up this radio and everyone's chanting, F the long walk, F the major, all around. When we were filming that, everybody was getting so into it. I remember as both Garrett and Stebbins, I just began to smile because there was a bit of camaraderie happening with everyone. In that small moment, Stebbins begins to see these boys as companions and not adversaries. It's a surprise to him that he finds throughout the film, specifically in that moment. That's cool. Next one is Mark Hamill feels that his character in the Stephen King adaptation is easily his worst character of all time. In an interview at the San Diego Comic-Con, he shared his thoughts on playing the Major. He's sadistic and all those terrible things. It's unlike anything I've ever done before, and that's what I like. Interesting. Although the two main characters' ages are not revealed in the movie, Ray Garrity and Peter McVries are both 16 years old in the book. Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson were 22 and 31 years old. Why do they do that? What about the kid Curly? In the movie, he's 16 or under 18, but is the actor actually under 18? See again. So does this not qualify as bad casting? David Johnson, his dialogue at times, you miss a word. You're like, wait, what? Was that the or of? Like, I don't know. He didn't enunciate, I think. I don't know. Or the accent. Or maybe he has an accent, or he's trying to do a bad accent. He's not good at it. Cooper Hoffman, 22 and 31. I mean, for them, that's a huge difference. That's pretty crazy. But then from the characters in the book, and Stephen King approved this. He's literally like, oh, screw the readers. No. But like, one of the reviews says too many changes. There's young actors. Didn't the entire Stranger Things crew like spawn all of those actors now? The next one is, during filming, Mark Hamill revealed, I had planned to have a get-together where everybody would come over to the hotel. He told people of the early days of filming in Winnipeg, Canada. But Francis Lawrence, he said, informed him, Cooper doesn't want to meet you. He's afraid he'll like you. Cooper Hoffman's reluctance to get on his co-star's friendly side, he says, was the process of preparing to act opposite Hamill's character, who enforces the rules of the boys' deadly game. And I totally respect that. I understand that. So I canceled the get-together, and I did it on a case-by-case basis. If his young co-stars came up to me, Hamill continued, I talked to them. Some of them wanted to stay away for obvious reasons because I'm their arch nemesis. I'm the antagonist. All that changed the moment filming wrapped, added Hamill. As soon as we did the last shot with Cooper, he immediately came over to my trailer and we talked for hours. I kind of kept some distance from Hamill while working just because of the nature of the film, admits David Johnson, who plays Peter McVries, one of the contestants in the contest. But afterwards, I've spoken to this guy, and he's just so funny, so caring and kind, and just full of history. I love him. That's cool. In the film, there are 50 walkers, one from each state. In the book, there are 100 walkers with no mention of state affiliations. Huh. That's why they say Garrity is in his hometown. But it's from he's the main character, though. Does that count as a character switch at the end? Like, No Country for Old Men? Huh. That technically is. Yeah, I guess it technically is. Yeah, that's cool. The soldiers wear plain green fatigues and carry early model M16 rifles that the U.S. would have been using back in the novel was first published in 1979. Also, the wristwatch like speedometers worn by the walkers use black-gray liquid crystal displays that fit with the time period. Oh, see, that's what I was saying. This is based on one of Stephen King's novels under pseudonym Richard Bachman. David Johnson said his initial gut instinct was to pass on the film. Really? He should have. He should have said no. Well, I remember reading it and it was like really bleak. So much that I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me. Interesting. And my agent was like, please, David, just take another look at it. And funny enough, I remember reading it and them kindly considering me for another role. And I was like, I'm not really interested in that one, but I'm interested in this one. What? And they were like, we'd love to see you. So I met with Director Francis and had a chat with him about it. And we somehow found a way of relating movies that we love to the movie that we were going to make. So we spoke about films like Stand By Me, another Stephen King adaptation. When I understood Francis's movie taste and that this was his passion project, I was like, okay, I think I want to do this. The BAFTA Rising Star Award, he said. But to try and answer your question about when I would know that I want to do something, I think it is when it kind of scares me. Do you know what I mean? I didn't quite know this role because I thought, is this a horror? Is this a character study? Where are we going with this? I think he saw the future reviews. Wow, this guy is precognitive. Mark Hamill said that when director Francis Lawrence approached him about playing the part of the Major, it immediately evoked his teenage years in Japan, where he went to school next to a U.S. military base. I said, I know who this guy is. I've seen him firsthand, Hamill said. I'd walk across the parking lot, seeing the officers putting these guys through their paces in blazing hot sun, and they were just brutal. Like if you vomit, they force you to eat it. It's horrible. What? Jesus. Next one is Judy Greer said her preparation for the role consisted of reading the book to understand the film's plot and to know what to prepare for behind the scenes. With this, it was really all on the page. She said, I don't tend to make a lot of adjustments depending. You know, people ask me that a lot, like, oh, is it different doing a comedy than a drama? Well, obviously it is, but the tone is already set on set. I don't really have to rein it in or do anything different. I just have to tell the truth. Greer said working with Cooper Hoffman, who plays her character's son in the film, did increase that challenge a bit as they got along so well behind the scenes that it made it harder for them to rein it in sometimes. Wow, the film has numerous heavy moments throughout, particularly one heartbreaking scene involving Greer about halfway through the film. That was a rough one, she said. I remember when we shot that, everyone at the video village watching the monitor was crying, and we were really upset when we were shooting that scene. It was awful. It was a really hard, that was a tough one because I think all of the parents out there who have to say goodbye to their children and send them off to war, let's say to a great unknown. And how do you function? How do you deal with that? How do you put on a tough face? How do you put on a tough face? God, that is a weird quote. One of the Stephen King stories adapted for movies, into movies for 2025. The others are The Running Man, The Monkey, and The Life of Chuck. Do you think Stephen King is one of, like, just every movie is a Stephen King movie? Unless right now they're just running through a bunch of them. The Major never moves his aviator sunglasses, even from the sides. His eyes aren't shown. Mark Hamill said that around 2019, he decided he wanted to step away from acting on camera. I thought this stage of my career I'd be spending more time with a metal detector, wandering around the beach, playing with the dogs in the backyard, Hamill said. I said to my agent, you know what? I'm not motivated anymore. I think I'm going to just sort of retire and just do voiceover. And the only people that rejected were my agent and my wife because, you know, it's good to have me out of the house. He credited filmmaker Mike Flanagan for reviving his career by casting him in the Netflix series The Fall of the House of Usher. That would have been a routine character for voiceover, but to play an amoral sociopathic lawyer, just pure evil, never on camera. He said, Flanagan then cast Hamill as an alcoholic accountant and grandfather of the title character in The Life of Chuck. Wow. Pretty cool. In the mid-2000s, Frank Darabont bought the rights for novel, intending to make the film, but after many years of no progress, the rights lapsed. Wow. In the mid-2000s, so this is coming a while ago. I wonder how it would have turned out then. It definitely probably less changes would have happened. Screenwriter J.T. Molnar discussed how happy he was to keep the heavy, exciting, terrifying themes of Stephen King's novel. We still wanted to make sure we had the beauty and love in the story of friendship, and also the brutality, hopelessness, and terror. He said, "I'm very, very grateful that we could keep the teeth that the book has and got rid of all the other parts. That was as far as anyone in the panel addressed the film's parallels to the current state of American democracy." Oh no. Instead, in a taped segment, director Francis Lawrence and actor Ben Wang discuss how the grueling nature of the shoot, in which the actors walked for miles on a Canadian highway, created a strong connection between the cast. "We shot this movie chronologically," Lawrence said. "So as everybody got together and met for the first time in the movie, you as actors were meeting for the first time and becoming friends and then going on this experience together. The physicality of the show was walking sometimes 30,000 steps a day, doing these very, very long takes, I think created a bond. Yeah, the filming must have been so easy for this. Just the camera just moving back and then, okay, reset. Do they go back and start again and then go back and start again? Or they just keep walking and do it and then later edit everything? Greg A. Romero was first attached to direct a film adaptation of The Long Walk in 1988. That's so long ago. The novel, like many of Stephen King's works, is explicitly set in Maine, or at least begins in Maine. In the film, Garrity simply says he's from downstate. While there is a city named Freeport in the film, the actual state is left ambiguous. Huh. It's got to be in the middle of America then, right? Something like that. I don't think it's on the coast. It's more in the center of wherever they are. Mark Hamill compared the Major to another famous villain of his, the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, 1992. "Villainy is fun to play because they don't think of themselves as villains. They're just doing their job," he said at the time. "Any time you can come in and just create chaos, it's almost as satisfying to be hated by the audience as it is to be loved." That's cool. Parked on the side of a road is a red car inexplicably engulfed in flames, a reference to Stephen King's 1983 novel Christine and its film counterpart Christine, 1983. No one in the film comments on the fire. That's cool. Despite the devastating nature of the film, Judy Greer, said Francis Lawrence, who also directed the Hunger Games franchise, kept the set light, which helped the cast communication, creativity, and ability to have fun. "I wasn't there as often as the boys, obviously, so they might have different answers," they said, "but I really feel like there is so much beauty and love and hope in this film." Mark Hamill initially hesitated to accept the role of the Major due to his strong opposition to gun violence. The entire movie is literally gunning down kids like with headshots. A vocal critic of gun violence in the U.S., citing statistics that show a decrease in shootings during the Bill Clinton-era assault weapon ban and an increase after its lapse under George W. Bush, he expressed his belief that gun violence is out of control in America, stating that no other country has the tragedies that we have. Director Francis Lawrence convinced Hamill to take the part by explaining that the film, an adaptation of Stephen King's novel, focuses on the characters' relationships rather than explicit violence. I mean, they showed all the kills. So, and like, they're very, on kids. It's literally murdering children on screen. Like, this one spawns an entire debate on gun violence. So, that's, I don't know. David Johnson liked his experience gleaning the script for the survival thriller of that Alien 1979, saying he looks to larger commentary within a movie to pique his interest. It's really hard to see that, and that scared me a bit, but I think that fear is where I should go, he said, of seeing the movie inside the movie in The Long Walk. Numerous characters who were white in the book have their races altered for the film, such as Peter McVries and Art Baker, who are black in the film. Hank Olsen is Asian, and Collie Park is a Native American, while described as a big, muscled blonde in the book. So is this like DEI stuff, or is it like actually legitimate? Because, I mean, Like, does it make sense to change everyone? Or it's like, hey, DEI, politics, like, they're going to come see a movie and get away from politics. Well, guess what? More politics. You ain't getting away from that. Director Francis Lawrence's 8th film that's based on a book. Mark Hamill's third time in a Stephen King film after Sleepwalkers and Life of Chuck. Out of the cast, David Johnson, Toot Newt, and Roman Griffin Davis, Curly, are British, while Joshua Ojek Parker's Canadian. So David Johnson's trying to do an American accent. So that's why. Some of the words have a British accent to it. The F word is said 286 times. Having a tank be part of the military detachment, escorting a long walk, may seem like overkill, but it's likely meant to deter any attempts by outside forces to sabotage the event a la Death Race in 2000. Maybe they could have added that. Some opposition from surrounding forces. And I don't know. I don't know if that was needed. I don't know. In the film, the major sidearm is a custom 1911 A1 with a stainless steel barrel. Since the film apparently takes place in an alternate 1970s, the M1911 A1 would have been the standard issue sidearm of the U.S. Army at the time, as the Brother 92 was not adopted until the mid-1980s. On the cover of the book, his sidearm appears to be a revolver of some kind with ivory or pearl grips. Cool. A Deadline Hollywood article from May 21, 2019 said that New Line Cinema had greenlit the film adaptation with Andre Overdahl directing and James Vanderbilt writing the screenplay. Wow, I wonder how that would have turned out. The film's marketing boasts the involvement of Francis Lawrence, director of The Hunger Games Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, Part 2, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, among other things. At surface level, it seems to be due to the similarities between the stories, but the connection goes deeper than that. The Long Walk novel was one of the two works of the era that kicked off the concept of people in dystopian futures watching other people participate in some sort of deadly competition on live television. The other being Death Race 2000 in 1975. Without their popularity, subsequent works were like Battle Royale in 2000 and the Hunger Games series may not have been made, making Lawrence's involvement extra fitting. Very interesting. Garrett Waring originally auditioned for the role of Barkovich. David Johnson and Jordan Gonzalez were 32 years old, playing Peter McVees and Richard Harkness, respectively. Characters no older than 18 in the book. However, other than Curly, who says he's 18 and is played by Roman Griffin Davis, who was 17 during filming, the character age is not stated in the film. So you cast some kid who is actually around the age of the characters in the book, and then you hire two other people who are not. But it's because this guy played Andy the robot, and why? They couldn't get anybody else. Who would have, like Dave Franco? I guess, if they, you can't cast comedians or funny people in this. I don't think that would have worked. Because, all the characters are literally being controlled. It's not here. It's not, this timeline. It's a different timeline. So things aren't good over there. But so maybe David Johnson and all these characters were the best choices. Maybe they do fit it because they don't look funny. They look serious. And it would have if Jim Carrey was in there and then Fluffy and then Dane Cook, whatever, comedians, it wouldn't have worked. Bobby Lee, Theo Vaughn. It wouldn't have worked. Or Seth Rogen, James Franco, Danny McBride. If they were cast in this, it wouldn't have worked. Though the film is set in a dystopian landscape, Judy Greer noted that the relationship in the film also bring hope. I don't know. I think everybody died. I don't think anybody survives. Except Peter. The third film, directed by Francis Lawrence, not to be scored by James Newton Howard, with the other two being his directorial debut, Constantine and Slumberland. Near the end, the Major wears a black cloak. Mark Hamill wore a similar black cloak in his signature role in Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Did he? Oh, Maybe he did. See, I knew it. It has to be a Star Wars reference in it. The I'm your father, when that kid confirms he's the Major's son, that has to be another Star Wars joke. This is the second Stephen King adaptation that Judy Greer has been in, the first being the 2013 remake of Carrie. She plays Mrs. Jesdardan, however you pronounce that. Cool. The spoilers now, if you haven't seen this movie. In the novel, Peter McVries, on top of developing a close bond with Ray Garrity, always becomes sexually attracted to him and admits this to Ray himself in the book. Garrity becomes confused and begins to doubt his own sexuality. In the film version, this is only slightly hinted, but it becomes obvious that the two characters really love and respect one another. Are you serious? Jesus Christ. Why? The Major says, "Good luck, son," to Stebbins as he receives his number. Stebbins later reveals that he's one of the Major's many illegitimate children. That's the Star Wars joke that I'm thinking. You're like, "Good luck, son. I am your father." Right? That's what it seems like. On why his character Stebbins chooses to drop out of the competition at the end, ultimately getting his ticket punched, Garrett Waring said, "I feel like Stebbins could have kept walking, but I believe he begins to see that he doesn't have what it takes to be the winner in his soul. He sees that what Ray and Pete share, and I think that he almost sacrifices himself to let them have those final moments together." I really realized that towards the end of that monologue, there at the end of the film, when he's allowing them to continue forward, he even though he gets sick and it physically wears him down, the love that Stebbins sees between the two boys, he's able to be at peace. He's able to be at peace and say that he's glad it's the two of them at the end. Okay, that sounds like gay stuff. Why must they do that? God, I'm glad they didn't make him kiss or anything. I didn't see that in the movie. The closest part is when he says he's joking. Peter starts joking that he's all turned on or whatever. And why now? Why whatever? I don't know about that. I'm glad they cut that out. I didn't get that in the movie at all. Mark Hamill admitted he had some concerns about a huge change made to the ending. But those fears were quickly eased when Stephen King gave his blessing. And once he saw how audiences reacted, this contradicts the reviews. What in the world? Hamill said the fact they made a major change like this, like that, it made me nervous. As it turned out, Stephen King loved it. What? The genius who wrote this liked the change to his own story. In King's book, Ray Garrity wins a contest and simply pushes past the Major, following a mysterious figure into the dark. The movie takes things in a much more explosive direction. I think people didn't like that. Contestant Peter McVries guns down the Major in a brutal act of revenge after Ray is killed. Because they're gay, right? Because the love of his life has now been murdered and he has to avenge him. I mean, we would have had to change it even if he didn't, but he approved of it, and I'm glad he did. I said to Lawrence, if I've done my job correctly, when I get shot, the whole audience should erupt in applause. And after a couple of test screenings, he said, you'll be pleased to know there's a big cheer when you get it. I thought, oh, good, I've done my job correctly. What? This makes no sense. The reviews contradict this change. Totally disagreeing with this. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Director Francis Lawrence explained why scriptwriter J.T. Molnar made changes to the ending and why Stephen King ultimately signed off on them. J.T. had a new idea on backstory, which was that the Major had done something to Gary's family. So that part is new. And he had these different motives for going into the long walk, which I really liked. That backstory sees the Major shooting Garrity's father. At the end of the book, McVries decides to sit down and accept his fate, leaving Stebbins and Garrity. Stebbins suddenly drops down dead. Wow. And Garrity stumbles off toward a dark figure that presumably only he can see. In the film, it's Stebbins who goes down first. Garrity convinces McVries to continue, and then sacrifices himself by sitting down. McVries, now the winner, asks for a gun, shoots the major, and then walks down alone down the road. This idea that McVrees was going to sacrifice himself because he loves Garrity so much, and that Garrity ends up sacrificing himself because he believes McVrees is the only one that's worthy of winning. That kind of shared experience I thought was really emotional, Lawrence said. He added, you don't really want the guy who's in it for vengeance to win, right? Because that's not really what the story's about. And I knew that people were really going to love McVrees, but I also loved about it was just narratively, the idea that we open on a kid in a car and the audience is going to be programmed to believe, clearly here's our winner. I love turning that on its head and going, guess what? He's not the winner. Lawrence was reportedly nervous to see if King would sign off on the change, but the author, who was an executive producer on the project, did. He really liked the ending, I think, because we stayed true to its spirit. I think he was willing to go for it. The movie title doesn't appear until 22-minute mark after the first walker gets their ticket. After Olsen's death, Parker laments him not using his final moments to wrestle a gun from one of the soldiers and take out some of their tormentors, which is exactly what Parker himself does when he gets fed up with the long walk. Ray refuses to let his tag be put on his neck and takes it himself while glaring at the Major. It initially seems it's because of his contempt for the long walk, but Ray later confides in Pete that the Major killed his father for the crime of dissent. And at the end of the walk, as it's only him and Peter left, Ray tells him that his only certainty is that they're all going to die and that if he's lucky, he can choose how you spend his last moment. And so death doesn't scare him anymore. He chooses to sacrifice himself to let Peter win shortly afterward and uses his dying breath to tell him that he loves him? Wait, he says that? He chooses to let Peter win shortly after and uses his dying breath to tell him that he loves him? Okay. That's so bizarre. I didn't hear that. The Major's name was never clarified, but was possibly kept unknown deliberately. It is possible his last name is Stebbins due to Billy being his son, but it's perhaps implausible that Stebbins was his mother's name. Jordan Gonzalez revealed that the hardest thing to film was his death scene. This is weird. I did not like this movie, if I haven't said that already. I did not like this film at all. I don't agree with these. Here are the reviews. This really quickly. A change too far. The ending is changed, not convincing. Yeah, it's just 8 out of 10. Disappointed. It felt like promising for the first 30 minutes. Mostly wonderfully brutal cinematography. I disagree with that. However, as soon as the drama ramped up, actors started to overact, and the whole script all of a sudden derailed in the Hollywood cliché land. Exactly. Oh, here. I felt like the movie pretty much cut out all the parts of the book I loved the most and butchered the final scenes into something completely different than the subtle but powerful book ending intended to convey. See? And Stephen King approved it, too. So, Walking to Nowhere. I'll start by saying I haven't read the book, but the concept of a dystopian death march with one winner and no finish line sounded pretty intriguing. Turns out it's just walking for almost 2 hours straight. I didn't know exactly what to expect. Emotionally strong despite its rigid structure. Missed opportunity. I'm going to read it with a spoiler. While I did enjoy most of the film and it provoked discussion debate when the lights came up, firstly, the central conceit of humans being walked over, whatever. Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I said that too. How the actors involved were good emotionally, but in terms of physical performance, each of them looked remarkably fresh up until the moment of struggle and death. This kind of walk would be akin to the Japanese PO death marches, but never felt that way. There was even one contestant who joined up in order to write a book. Surely a wiser choice would have been to follow along by car. If the filmmaker was attempting to show the way that people insulate themselves from death until confronted with it, then that should have been developed further, as this has felt clumsy. Next point, to the spectacle itself. This is supposed to be a TV event watched by millions, a la The Hunger Games. As it apparently is so popular, it galvanizes the masses into a work ethic. So where were all the crowds lining the streets? Yeah, right? If this is the only thing to watch, like the Olympics, you're going to go watch it. Even at the end, it is a very small gathering. Maybe they've killed everyone. Finally, the ending. Yeah, maybe they've killed all the opposers. Anyone who's against it. Finally, the ending. The main character is fueled by hate and revenge. His friend by love and compassion. At the very end, the main character looks deep into his heart and stops walking, knowing that all he has to give is hate. As such, it is a sacrifice for the future and for a hope that he wants but knows he cannot give. Great, but then the other guy picks up a gun and kills Luke Skywalker anyway, making that sacrifice utterly pointless. I find this part infuriating, and when I got home I checked the ending of the book, which I have not read, to see if it is the same. And no, as I suspected, the film decided to neatly wrap things up by killing the bad guy. This is not by any means a terrible film. I would recommend watching it, but I do think it was a missed opportunity overall and was such a real shame. See? Like, the big thing is, like, that's what I said. Now Peter is a murderer. He's I don't understand that. I think at the end when Peter walks away, his fantasy is that no one's around him. But in reality, I would assume they're going to arrest him. Unless he's the winner and he's, like, he can't get in trouble. And then we'll finish this with the continuity and goofs and all that. Peter's large facial scar changes intensity throughout the film, even completely disappearing in some scenes. I bet you it fell off in the sweat. I bet you it's like, you know. After the race starts and the characters start talking, Garrity questions Stebbins if it's wise to be eating jelly sandwiches that early. In the background of the scene, the sandwich appears on Stebbins' hand out of nowhere. And he also fetches his water canteen from his bag, but in the next shot, he's reached for it from under his other arm. Factual errors. The weapon that Pete is given at the end of the movie is mentioned as a carbine. However, the weapon is actually an M16 rifle, which is not a carbine. The carbine version of the M16 is the M4, which was developed in the 1980s and would not have been available for the characters to use since the movie is set in the 1970s. So if you are a gun hater, why are you involved in this movie? You're an actor. Shouldn't you know as much stuff as possible? These actors should be enrolled in like film required classes that you go scuba diving, you know, for acting and how to do it on camera and all those things. And then the same with this. Why don't they go like required to know stuff about guns? Because then the characters are going to be like, wait, stop, that's not a carbine. And then all the script writers are going to be like, oh, wait, what? And do research and be like, oh, it's not, it's an M16. You're right. Okay, and action. I want that M16, you know? Nah, I want that carbine. It's kind of weird. You see how some things get in the way. The next one is, well, the editors messed up as a minimum of 3 miles per hour is a minimum of 72 miles every 24 hours. They aren't even on mile 400 come day 7. So they all should have been shot and winner declared by day 5 with the timeline and mile updates they give. Would have been better if they just gave time, not distance updates throughout the film. It's just odd that no one else seemed to notice this error. Oh, they aren't even on mile 400 come day 7. So they should have. Oh, that's funny. Anachronisms. The film takes place in the 1970s. During the walk, a double-stacked intermodal freight train can be seen in the background. An all double-stack freight train debuted in the U.S. in 1984. So this was in the background in Canada, probably. All right, well, yeah, so those are all the trivia, goofs, continuity, and some reviews and some other thoughts for this movie. If you want to check out my full review on my other channel, Good or Good Enough, you can. It'll be available at the end of this video as well as in the description.